I'm going to start. Hello, hello. All right, I'm not on, Brian. Now. Hello, hello. All right, I'm going to start the meeting with a pledge of allegiance. Feedback. Eric? Heard me. All right, I'm going to start with audience introductions. Charlie, you want to do the. Oh, Brian has the mic. All right. Thank you.
Good evening, Larry Blodgett. I'm second selectman to the town of Carthage.
I'm Jan Hutchinson, Select Board Chair, Town of Carthage.
Jason Long, Darrell Middle School Principal and Curriculum Coordinator for the district.
Charlie Swan, Principal at Darrell Elementary.
Michelle Larrabee, Town of Canton Selectman and community member and parent.
Kenny Robbins, Director of Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation.
Alicia Khan, Dixfield Town Manager.
Peter Holman, Selectman, Dixfield.
Dick Pickett, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Dixfield.
Kathleen Zostick of Dixfield.
And Brian Keene, Tech Director.
Thank you and welcome, Selectman, Town Manager. Thank you for coming. All right, adjustments to the agenda. She's not going to come, so I'm not going to change it unless Julie comes earlier. So do we have any others? Oh, a motion to add the following. Could I have a motion, please? And a second. Roll call.
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Deanna,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
All right. Consideration of the minutes of the February 21st, 2023 board meeting. Could I have, shouldn't that be March? I'm going in March. Could I have a motion, please? And a second,
Second.
and I'll give you time, comments, questions, revision. Seeing none, roll call.
Dawn,
Not voting.
Larry, Bruce.
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Angela,
Not voting.
Barbara,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Deanna,
Yes.
Carl.
Yes.
Okay. Public comments. This is the time the public can make a comment. Respectfully, we do not talk about employees, any complaints that are in the process. Is there any public comment? Just want to make one, Kathleen had asked at the next time, well, for an answer to about how the school board stands, what we'll have to do, because Pam can't answer us for us on that, is we'll put it on a quick agenda item next time, just the two articles. And we'll figure out to get the two articles to you if you hadn't seen them. They were in the Sun Journal. Well, I read them in the Sun Journal. I think the Rumford Falls Times. Okay, I think there's, okay. All right. All right, next, communications.
So I've had two communications this afternoon, 4:30 and 4:38 respectfully. The maximum that the insurance is going to come in is not going to be more than 6%. If you recall, we previously had up to 10% because that's what they had said. So we had 10% in the budget. It has been reduced to 6% in the last hour and a half. The second piece of good news is the ED 279s were updated at 4:38 this afternoon with a note that there was an error found at the state level. Previously, RSU 56 was down almost 100,000. The updated ED 279 has RSU 56 up just over 60,000. Both of these were good news. However, it does mean that the full budget will not be available until Friday. We do have bottom line budgets for you to consider tonight, but Mary has to go in and manually change every employee's benefits now that the benefits have changed. She'll have to do that again, hopefully, if it comes in under 6%. So we will, well, Mary will email all the board members the budget on Friday, and there'll also be hard copies available in her office. Those copies can be available for board members as well as any public that would like the full budget.
Any questions on that? It's very exciting news. All right, new business. Motion, oh, what? You can ask a question, yes,
You said the ED 279 is up over 60,000. Does that mean only $40,000 down, or are we not talking the $100,000 down, but we're 60,000 up?
So we were 100,000 down, we're 60,000 up, so that's like a net gain of 160,000 in this
Thank you.
updated numbers that you,
Okay,
Kenny is looking at me like, what? Because I gave this to the admin at 4 and it was totally different at 4 than it is right now.
thank you.
should I wait to the budget to ask what 4% would be for a reduction? Because we're gonna keep 6%. What is 4%? Okay. thank-
66,000 is what we were able to take out with that 4% reduction in the health costs, knowing it's not going to be more than 10%. It's not going to now be more than 6%.
Mary Ann, since you just came, she got a 4:30, saying they did our estimation wrong. We're 60,000 up, and insurance will be max of 6%. So we got two good news. Excellent.
And it's why Mary and I have red faces and we look like we've run a marathon because the last hour and a half has been a lot of budget updating.
All right. Now, motion to appoint Brian Keene to the Region 9 Board of Directors. Could I have a motion, please? And a second?
Second.
Comments, questions? We do know the person. I think it is weird. It's hearing, but it's not. Oh, let me. All right, is 100% better. That one's a bust. Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Dawn,
Yes.
Larry, Bruce,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Deanna,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
Mary Ann.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, then I'm gonna turn it over to Pam and Mary for a budget overview and not a full budget as we had anticipated.
So I'm going to make sure it's up on the display first. And I think instead of going to the podium, I'm gonna stay here so I can see people in the audience as well as the board member. All right, so moving right along. We always start the budget with 3 key considerations: what's best for our students, how we support our current employees, and how do we respond to our community concerns. And the next slide, I will give you the update on the ED 279. As you know, last time I had told you that it was down $99,764.13. Today, we found out that it's actually up $60,779.88. The big difference from what they had put out before to now was they had made a mistake in the mill rate. Remember, I had told you that the mill rate had gone up. It actually went down. So it went down to 6.97 where it used to be 7.10. The valuations of all four towns are still up. The state share was down from 68.53 to 67.64, which is a little better than last time. Disadvantage is still substantially down. That did not change. We went from about 63% disadvantage to 47%. And again, as I explained last time, that's in large part due to the fact that all breakfasts and lunches are free now. So it's hard to get people to fill out the forms that help us in this type of situation. So we will, hopefully all of us work together to try to get them in at a higher level next year. I am going to have Mary do the next couple of slides.
So this one is a snapshot of each of the years of RSU 56, what the total budget was, the dollar increase from the previous year, and then the budget to budget increase. You notice 18-19 looks strange because the dollar increase is negative, but that's because of the change in the Region 9 funding from the state that year. And we haven't filled in the proposed on 23-24 yet. And also just on the right-hand column, fairly moderate increases each of the years that we've been a district. This revenue breakdown has lots of numbers on it, but the main thing to look at is we only have a couple of funding streams for revenue, basically state subsidy and then the local allocation. We do have carryover each year that we try to keep at the 277.5. We started the very first year with 250,000 carryover, being conservative, not knowing coming out of RSU 10 what the carryover amount would be. And then 1920 was increased by 64,000 because of a change that was going to take place with staffing. And so we knew that was going to offset in the next year. And then it's been 277.5 each of the other years. Miscellaneous revenue, I will talk about on the next slide. But the main thing is, as you can see by the percentages, that most of the revenue to pay for all the budget items is both state subsidy and local allocation. So here's the breakdown on miscellaneous revenue. In 17-18, when we first started out, we put in 60,000 estimated revenue for main care. That was something that had always been done in RSU 10. It's a gamble because you never know how much main care revenue you're actually going to take in. And I don't believe that we took in the whole 60,000 that year. And what happens when you estimate revenue and then don't get that whole amount in is that there have to be expenses that don't take place because you can't spend more than your budget or more than you take in for revenue. The technology services column, Region 9 was paying for technology services to us for the first 4 years and then decided that they were going to go a different route. So that's why that's zero for the last couple of years. Gate receipts, if you attend a football game or basketball game, you know that you have to pay to get in, and we estimate 5,000 of revenue for gate. And then the state grant for laptops was just those first couple of years of the RSU and isn't happening any longer. And miscellaneous is made up of various things when we sell old buses at bid or MSMA, main school management. We have unemployment comp and workers' comp through them. And so they sometimes give us a refund if our numbers are looking good with them. And that sums it up for the revenue.
Oops. And this next slide shows the uncontrollable costs, like the things that we as administrative team do not have any control over. The electricity cost for next year is up 29,000. This is because we have to go back out to bid for electricity. We were under a 3-year contract, and we have to go back out to bid, which we've done. So we know what we're going from 6 cents a kilowatt to 10 cents a kilowatt. So there is an increase. Gas and diesel, it's gonna be up 28,000, just over 28,000. Heating oil, just up about 9,500. And thank you to Kenny for watching those and getting us locked in as soon as it looked like it was gonna be about as low as we could get. Health insurance at that 6% increase is 99,828. Contractual wages, so all of our employees are under collective bargaining agreements. So the wages that we know we have to increase for next year are $181,649. And then there are other benefits like Medicare and all that stuff. It's $70,348. So those total $419,361, which would be a 3.17% budget to budget increase with just the things that we cannot control. If you go to the next slide, you can see, however, that the administrative team, I told them that they needed to come in as lean as possible in anything that they could control, which they did. So with no changes to our number of employees, the programs that we have, our budget to budget, after the administrators made the cuts that they could do, would be 13,589,204, which would be 2.83% budget to budget increase, or a total amount of $374,064. I did take out the sheets that Mary typically gives you and just kind of gave you the pieces that I thought were going to be most pertinent for you tonight. So at 2.83% increase, the town of Canton would see a 13.296% increase. Carthage would see a 1.448, Dixfield 4.395, and Peru 4.171. And again, that's with what we currently have. And the next slide, I go into that a little bit more. At 2.83% increase, it would include all of our current employees, our current co and extracurricular activities, and our current programs, except for we would lose JMG without the additional 13,500 going into the budget. What's not in that budget is that 13,500 for JMG, the new bus that we could potentially get, civil rights stipend at Darago Elementary School for 1,300, and there are no site improvements. Kenny has cut all of the site improvements down out of the budget in order to try to offset some of those increases with gas and electricity and all of those things. That's what's in and that's what's out.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, you may.
I just want to clarify the new bus at 54,000, that's actually one payment of three, but that's what it would have to go in the 23-24 budget if the board chooses to move forward with that bus that we have approval from the state.
And if you recall, that bus also we get money back. So we wouldn't, like, we pay out that and then it goes back through our formula the following year. So you would get the state allocation back. At this point, it's 63%. So depending on what we had for the percentage they were paying. So just so you know that. The next slide, this is the total budget. If you added the add-ons into the budget, it would be an additional $68,800, resulting in another 0.52% increase. The total budget would be $13,658,004. And then it would be a 3.35% budget to budget increase. This would include the new bus, the JMG portion of this pay, and the civil rights stipend at Darago Elementary School. The next slide shows you what that 3.35% increase would look like. That would mean Canton would be up 14.50%, Carthage would be up 2.447%, Dixfield 5.753%, and Peru 5.361%. So the next slide, I'm not sure, did I put the next one in there? Okay. You can skip that one, actually. No, that's not true. Sorry, I'm confused because I have done this 14 times since. So this doesn't make sense to me. I got it. Mine has the old tube thing in there. Great. I'm all caught up now. Sorry. The last hour and a half has been a little bit of a mad race. So to get to 2.5% budget to budget increase, if that's where the board would like to be, we would have to cut $43,685 from the original budget without any add-ons. Or if you wanted those add-ons in, the administrative team would have to go back and find $112,485. And that list will be developed after we get our verification of insurance. So before you saw this again, we would outline our possibilities, but we would wait for that insurance piece to come in, because we know that for each 1%, that's potentially less than 6% increase, was about 16,000. So we would use that money first to get to 2.5. The next sheet shows you what it would be for an impact at 2.5%. Canton would be at 12.531. Carthage would be at 0.813. Dixfield 3.532, and Peru 3.415. If there's no questions, I will go on to the 2% budget to budget increase. If we were looking at a 2% budget to budget increase without any add-ons, we would have to cut $109,761. Again, that list will not be developed until we get it'll be developed, but it won't be implemented until we look at the insurance when it comes in, specifically what we have. If we add the add-ons in, the administrative team would have to come up with $178,561 to decrease from that budget. The next sheet shows you what the impact of 2% is to our towns. Canton would be 11.373. Carthage would be minus 0.147. Dixfield would be 2.228, and Peru would be 2.72. And the next slide, because I think that's really what most people are writing down right now, has the percentage increases in the impacts on the towns, so you can see them all at once. So you can see on this next slide, I have Canton, Carthage, Dixfield, and Peru to the left, the 4 different options at the top, and what the increase would be to the towns directly with those percentage increases. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Larry.
Are these available for the public to see online?
I will get this posted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And anybody obviously can see it on our live stream tonight. I have Mary does have them here. If you would like a copy of each of them, this is the full, she normally hands them out.
And you have that in there, correct? That slide?
This slide
Yeah,
this slide is not in here.
okay,
But
because
I can-
that's the one I would, when I'm having a discussion, I would like to, we'll keep it up after you're done. That
I
one.
could actually ask Mr. Long right now to go make copies if people in the room would like this slide with the different percentage
Yeah,
increases.
'cause it narrows.
Probably just as easy to hand you. No, I don't want to hand you this. I will share my slideshow because I need to keep talking. Sorry, Mr. Long, I don't mean to. I can do that too.
But over what we're, what
I've shared that with Mr. Long. He'll go and make copies and will continue on with this for a few minutes. So we also, in addition to the budget, I should say too, that adult ed sits outside this budget and we do not have those numbers yet from Region 9. So we also have a vote on the bus garage. So we currently have 500,000 in capital reserve for a potential bus garage. We had bid openings this week and low bid was 963,000 and a little bit more. So we would need to be asking for an additional 600,000 plus or minus, because there's costs beyond that, like with the architect and those sort of things. The lift and the air compressor are not included, so there'd be a few additional costs beyond this. So we're looking at a total of right around 1.1 million. This is not an additional cost in the FY24 budget because this is carry forward money. I will be asking BGT to discuss this on Friday when they meet, and then bring back a recommendation to the board at the next meeting when we talk about the bus garage a little bit more. when we were at 500,000-ish for a bus garage, it really did make a lot of sense. I just want to be clear that at 1.1 million, it takes about 38 years to get back what we were currently paying in rent to be somewhere else. But there are still some positives that we need to consider in terms of just the workspace. It's pretty tight down to the Dixfield bus garage that we're currently at. It needs some repairs, at least on the side that we're working out of. And our workflow is certainly would be better if the bus garage was up by the middle school, where right now our mechanics drive up there, get a bus, drive it back down. When they're done, they drive it back up, get another bus, drive it back down. And we currently have, I might have to refer to Mr. Robbins for an exact count, but I believe between buses and vans and tractors, we have 29 vehicles that they're servicing. So he said 17 buses, and then we have the vans and tractors and that sort of stuff, pickups. So I think it's worth considering. I just think that we should have one more conversation with BGT around the pros and cons of that kind of money going out in this kind of economy.
Don?
Yes, I'd like to make the comment that we've been down, we've toured that garage, we're renting space out of right now. I would be surprised if it's standing in the next 5 years, leave alone the other safety factors that we have down there that we're gonna have to put up with. So if we don't put this other 600,000 into that account, we're gonna be paying that in other ways.
And I do agree with you in some ways. You know, I do think it's in the long run, it's good to be completely self-contained. If we could have our own bus garage, then we have everything we need under our buildings. So I think it's definitely worth considering. I just know that 1.1 million sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. And I just would like to encourage BDG to have one more conversation around it and bring back a recommendation to the board.
When they have that conversation, and Kenny and them probably already know if there's any other major thing besides the bus garage that is being pended for maintenance or for, you know what I mean, something in our buildings. But I think we're pretty good. So if we at least have that discussion, because, you know, that will give you the balance of, okay, is there anything left?
Right. And
that
I do
needs to
want to
be
reiterate that this would not mean that the townspeople need to come up with more money, because this is balance forward money. So it's not like it would go into the budget. We already have this money. It's just how do we use it best for the district? Okay, and then going to the next one, you also will have a vote on the revolving renovations grants, which is the Derigo High School bathrooms. This grant can be up to $214,750. Of that amount, 68.53% or $147,168 would be forgiven, while the remaining 31.47% or $67,582 would be paid back by RSU56 at 0% interest over 5 years. So we do have a portion of it that would need to pay. I want to be clear that this revolving renovation grant would need to go out to the June 13th referendum vote. So the people would have a chance to say yes or no on whether or not to move forward with this, because this is a portion that would need to be paid back. So it would impact the next 5 budgets. So just want to be clear with that. I don't even know what I have up there next. Sorry. I feel like I am usually pretty organized. This last hour and a half has kind of rattled me a little, and I apologize. So our timeline tonight, obviously, is the budget workshop. We were supposed to get a full budget to the board, but that will be out by Friday. And the board on April 11th will vote on a budget. On May 9th, the board will sign the warrants. May 23rd, we'll have a budget hearing validation meeting here at Derigo High School. And then on June 13th, all 4 towns will have the referendum vote. And my next slide should say open discussion.
I have a quick question. the bathrooms, loan, I do know, just because we're doing it to make sure people are comfortable, but, and I know it happened earlier and I don't know if we all got an email that there's been issues with the high school bathrooms where, I mean, the kids, I don't know what's going on, but meaning this would be beneficial, so this wouldn't happen. Is that true or untrue?
So there are two things currently going on, I think that you're referring to. I'm gonna start with one with, we've been having some issues with appropriate behavior in the bathroom in terms of, we've had some soap dispensers ripped off, we've had chocolate milk spilt around, students walking through it and then walking on the toilets. And I will say this renovation would help with supervision, because right now, obviously I knock on every boys' bathroom door before I walk in. So it's really hard to supervise what's happening in there. If I was able to, if anybody, any adult walking by is able to just open the door, look in, because you're not seeing anybody. Like, we really can't check boys' bathrooms. There are urinals. I'm not walking in there on anybody. And so it makes it harder to supervise what's going on in there. So if you have privacy stalls where you can kind of check in and see what's happening in bathrooms, that would be helpful. And then there's also the other issue of, obviously, there's a law that gender expansive and transgender students have the option of using the bathroom of their choice. And when that happens, especially if we happen to have a trans male, they are walking in where other students are potentially using the urinal, and those students are feeling uncomfortable. So privacy stalls actually help with both gender expansive and cisgender, which means just straight students feeling more comfortable in the bathrooms. Did I hit what you were alluding to?
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
Yeah. With privacy stalls going from, say, the ceiling to the floor, is that what you mean by privacy stalls?
So privacy stalls do go basically from the ceiling to the floor, and they have the no peek doors. So when somebody's in there, nobody can see them from outside.
Okay, my other question is then, I know that one of the toilets got plugged up and overflowed. So if you have a privacy stall and you can't see what's going on in that stall, what's going to stop them from being students, boys, girls, whoever, from being in there and doing something similar to that, or in there vaping or smoking or on their cell phone for 20 minutes?
So the difference is that I think adults are going to feel more comfortable walking in and checking bathrooms. That's basically going to be the biggest difference, because again, if I'm, as a female, I knock on boys' bathrooms, as the males in our building knock on girls' bathrooms. So it's not like you can just walk in and like, hey, what's going on? You're given notice that you're coming in.
But my question is, how are you going to know what's going on in that enclosed stall? You aren't. You can just see the lobby part. You can't see behind the door.
You will not be able to see behind the doors, but I will dare say that when I am able to pinpoint something that's going on in the bathroom, it's usually multiple people, and it's not necessarily in the stalls. It's like jumping from stall to stall. So I do think it would reduce, just because of the fact that we could supervise them better.
And my question is, when they go to the bathrooms here, they have to sign out from the classroom on a sign out sheet, like say, Elizabeth Kelly's going to the bathroom at such and such a time. Do you still have those sign out sheets?
The teachers have instituted the sign out sheets, and they have bathroom passes that they take to the bathroom with them. So we know that that's where they're headed, and they can kind of figure out how long they're gone. It is hard, I will tell you, because you're teaching a class and a student checks out and you're in the middle of something. It's potentially like, oh, they call down and like, oh, I just realized they've been gone for 12 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, comments, budget. No comments. Go ahead, Dick. Will you come up to the microphone So, because, oh, yeah, it's there.
Take a minute. So, maybe have to turn it on. Is there a? Hello? Yep, it's on. Hear me? Nope, I guess, whatever. I talk pretty loud anyway, she probably can't hear me anyways. But, what, the question I have for the board is this. With looking at the budget proposal and looking at the amounts of increases that could be going from the 2% up to right to the maximum, depending on what the budget goes through as. No, and seeing how the inflation and everything that's going on in the country and in our own state is going right now, and representing the taxpayers in the town of Dixfield, I find it very difficult to believe that we're taking out over $200,000 to retrofit bathrooms. And I guess the question I have for you is this. I know it's going to be the referendum, and that's going to say that's going to make the decision there. But I will tell you one thing right now. I want to know, where's the money coming from? Specifically, where is it? It's a grant. Where's it coming from?
So this is a revolving renovation fund through the Maine Department of Education.
Right, and it's a loan, correct?
It is a loan with part of it forgiven
And it'll be part of the budget.
moving forward in FY '25, yes.
So it would be paid for by taxpayers.
Yep, that percentage that I quoted would be paid for by taxpayers.
So we're gonna put another burden of that amount of taxpayer, if that goes, on top of what we already have. That's my concern, because I'm concerned about the taxes in town. We're trying to hold our budget too, as well as you folks. But I'm concerned about something like this, which quite frankly, personally, I don't think it's needed. That's my own personal opinion. But I understand as a board has to make a decision. I'm glad that there is a referendum on it. I think that's gonna be a telling, and whatever the referendum says is fine. But I just think with everything going on, with the price going up on everything, and we all feel it. We feel it at the pumps, we feel it at the grocery store, we all see it. The last thing we need is to have the school tax go up, the local tax go up and all of that. There's gotta be, I just ask the board to think about that when you finalize the budget on the tax burden we're putting on the people in the district here by doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick. All right, comments? Any more comments? Okay, what Pam had asked us last meeting when it was 9:15 and we were not thinking correctly or wanted to think correctly is the administration, she needs some guidance on what we're looking for a percentage. So Jason took out what, and Pam and Mary can clarify with also if, last year's was, I wrote it down, 1.85. And if we did a 2 point, well, she gave us a 2, and I forgot how much that would be to cut, a 2.5. And is that including, that's not including these with the addition if we added, no, if we added, it would be more cuts, correct? So I think what we need to decide, which we will formally vote on, is a direction, because they got to do that. They have to do what we're looking for a percentage. And we have 3 items. Is it 3 or 4?
So you have 3 things to consider
Consider-
adding in: the
Yeah.
new bus, the 13,500 for JMG, and the 1,300 for the Derigo Elementary School Civil Rights stipend.
So, go ahead, Don?
We've discussed this a little bit before. With everything going up, like this gentleman just said, and we've discussed this, I would think for us to be able to stay at 2%, we should be able to get that passed the first time out. We can try for more, but this stuff with all these add-ons, I don't believe in that at all. So got all the add-ons right off. But I think we've got to work to keep it down at 2%. If we want to get a budget passed, we got to realize, like he said, we've got prices that went up we don't have complete control over. But we're taxing the same people that are getting hit at the grocery store, at the filling station, fuel, we've got to work a little harder and I've heard it mentioned that we might have to lay somebody off. If that's what has to happen to keep the budget down, this is not a perfect world. And I think we've got to bite the bullet and help the taxpayers.
Okay, I've heard from Don. We need direction, not just from one person, from the board. Mary Ann and then Deanna.
Can we just go back to the slide where it shows what the add-ons in? Please. To the add-ons, what they are. And how much each is.
So if you add it on, sorry. So the add-ons are the new bus, 54,000. Again, part of that would come back in the next budget year. JMG portion at 13,500. And then the civil rights stipend at 1,300 for Dargo Elementary School.
I'll go Deanna. I think Mary Ann's thinking.
I have two questions. Can you just let me know, like, what is the civil rights stipend? Because I missed that somewhere. What is in that?
So we have civil rights advisors at the middle school and the high school. And then a couple of years ago now, the board directed a civil rights ad hoc committee to look at civil rights in the district. And they recommended to have civil rights at the elementary school. In order to do that, we've had a volunteer do it to see if kids were interested. We do have some kids that are participating in it, but in order to maintain and keep that, it would be a stipend position for them to continue to work with civil rights groups at the Dargo Elementary School.
And
Charlie,
then-
do you want to add anything to that?
It's for students in grades 3 to 5. We have approximately 10 students right now participating in our civil rights team.
Go ahead with your second
My
question.
second question is about the JMG program. So, when I went to school here, which wasn't super long ago, it sounded like everything JMG talked about in our future perspectives class. Is that not offered anymore? Is that good question?
We do still have future perspectives. It's different than JMG. JMG is more in line to what used to be at Region 9 in, I never can remember the name of that program. Like, career explorations or something like that. Well, job and career readiness program at Region 9. So it does more than what our future perspectives would do.
So I guess, I don't know how to say it the right way, but like when I was here, we did literally the resume building, the mock interviews, there was a class that helped you on like tax preparation, things like that, all within our school district. So I just think maybe it makes sense to look at what your school can offer inside before we talk about 13,500. We're paying somebody else to come do what our own educators could probably do.
Did you have Mrs. Fair? Yeah. Okay, when Mrs. Fair retired and, so currently I would, that is a good thing because that is what Karen did do, but I don't know if that's what they still do. Because I've heard various things. I don't know if they do an autobiography. I have no idea if the curriculum stayed, because I think it changed, because they used to do CPR too, and I know they don't do that. So
So
We
we
also
are
did,
working
like-
back towards CPR. We have a person getting certified so they can teach it. They do, I can't remember what you just said they did. So they do their autobiography. And they do some budgeting and getting ready for things outside of Derigo High School.
Thank you. Your first, quick question on, I know we have a volunteer at DES. I do know at Derigo High School and at the middle school, we have civil rights. It is required by law. I don't know if we have to have one in each school. I don't think so, but there was something. And I do know that there wasn't very many people in them. So
So that's one of the reasons why they wanted to start civil rights at the elementary school, to generate that interest while they're younger, so that they would remain hopefully interested at the middle school and the high school level.
how many were in the middle of high school this year?
I believe we've had 5 or 6 students in civil rights this year.
Jason? All right, thank you. Okay. So waiting for that, anybody next? Bruce?
I'm gonna start out with some questions first. I'm gonna go with our add-ons. I've heard both ways on our new bus. The nice thing of our new bus is, of course, again, you gotta realize that you're upfronting the cost, but you're getting also reimbursement 66 point something percent.
Yeah, it's whatever our, on the ED 279, it changes from year to year. I think it's right around 63%.
So the bus that we're looking at is, I mean, obviously they've gone up substantially because you're looking at $150,000 bus. Is that correct, Kenny? So does that change that?
That would change that slightly. I don't know if Mary has that off the top of her head.
I mean, that's almost a $10,000 difference right away, because you get 3 payments. If you look at it from that standpoint. The thing is that, Kenny, do you know what bus that would replace?
Helps me if I turn mine on. Huh? Okay, yep.
So it is bus 11.
Okay.
And the bus is currently at July 1 had 134,000 on it.
Okay. So the new bus you're talking about, you said was roughly,
Yeah, so I got a price today. So what they do is we show an initiative for a price, so they go to Bluebird. Bluebird come back with us today, and it was 132 and change, so 133,000.
and is this a full-size bus?
Yeah, 77.
Diesel?
Yeah, 77 passenger diesel. And I did include the cameras, so they have cameras inside and outside.
Any more questions, Bruce?
No, I mean, that was one of my concerns, is that, as we've discussed over the past few years, I mean, we've been fortunate when we had the SF money and from COVID that we were getting buses, but we also have last year approved for a new bus. I know Kenny's budget line has gone down in repairs and maintenance for buses, because we're no longer running buses that are getting aged out. But it isn't as much as that, it's the mileage, it's the lovely salt and everything that rots them away. And we end up either putting weldings, doors, seats, frames, you name it, we're putting it into it. So as much as you hate to sit there and look at, well, wow, you're gonna spend that type of money, but again, the state's gonna pay back a good part of it. It would be a shame to lose out on a bus, because if we don't take it, another district will take it. And it puts us another year behind in running something older and ending up with more money, more maintenance to continue running our fleet. And if you look at our area, we're in a rural town. We're buses moving all the time, so that we need these buses to keep the transportation moving. The second one I looked at was a JMG. I'm trying to fathom and gather all the information. We're looking at this program. I know that if we don't accept the program and we decide, well, gee, let's not fund that, JMG will go to another district and we will lose out on JMG. Do I really understand JMG? Not fully, I'll be honest with you. But by the listening of how many students we have taking and using this program, it would be a sad asset that we would be losing. So I would be supportive of trying to hang on to JMG at least for another year. And really at this time, look at, is it something that we would then, knowing the following year, it's going to go up another substantial amount of money. If we don't find that this calendar year, that is really now we're going to be more as a board aware, is this JMG really something we want to continue moving forward with? The civil rights stipend, I mean, if it's something as small amount it is, but still an amount of money, it still would be a nice thing to offer such programs to any student. I mean, I don't have any elementary students. I don't have any students in the district at all, but I would want to see that the students in our district from the beginning, early elementary ages, all the way up through, have a right to be able to have a program. And if we're looking at trying to spur on the civil rights program for a small amount of money, we're going to get a stipend going and allow this thing to move forward. So looking at the add-ons, it is always a hard pill to swallow when you ask for more money and you look at to add more into the budget. But you've got to look at the big picture of what you're doing for your programs and what you're offering your children and what you're doing for your business, your buildings, your transportation. And again, I can't repeat it enough times. We're in a rural town. Our buses move all the time. We've saved a lot of money on updating our buses and keeping things in a good working state. So sum the whole thing up of what exactly would I be looking for the budget increase. I don't think that a 3.35 is going to fly very far. I would hate to see that we would go down to a 2%. So I'm somewhere mixed between the 2.5 and the 2.83.
Okay. Larry?
Kenny? You just look like you need some exercise tonight. I have some questions about the buses. How many buses do you need?
We are running, we have 17 buses currently. So just give you an example, one of our new buses went down with a warranty problem. We're looking at 4 months before we get any parts. So we have 12 buses we run every day on our regular runs. So we have a couple buses that we use for trips. So that gives us 2 spares. So when something comes about, like the bus that we just took to Augusta, when you got a new bus that's sitting down near another 3 or 4 months and you can't use it, you gotta kind of keep a few more than what we're used to, just to keep, things rolling.
Okay. I'm doing this from memory, which at this point in my life is lousy. But I remember getting some buses during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
new buses.
Yes.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
How many buses did we get then?
So we got, I think there was 4, but remember, we got rid of 4 or 5 just last fall that we kept around just for COVID. But once we get over COVID, and we got rid of some of the older ones.
It just seems, and I agree with Bruce, you need something that's good, gonna be on the road.
Right.
But, and like Don said, at 54,000, that's a good chunk of change.
Mhm.
And that's why I was asking, and so I'm gonna go back and look at the past what we got, but it just seems like the bus at this point, I understand what you're saying and I understand what everybody else is saying, but it seems like a bus at this point is
Mhm.
something that is gonna be a hard pill to swallow.
Right.
So I think we need to take a good look at that and see
Yep.
if that's something we need. Thank you.
Kenny, don't
Yes.
move. Quick question, just to know the history. When we apply, we do not get it every time, correct?
Right, yeah, so this actually went into the second round, and I was surprised that we did get approval for it. I figured we weren't gonna get it. So, the state has X amount of dollars and, so we did get approval on that second round.
And do we have an idea of how much savings we've saved in the maintenance?
We were running, I believe, around 110,000 on parts. I did cut it back to 80 last year. Over the last couple of years, I've cut it back because we did get the new buses. But then all of a sudden, we know what everything has gone up to this year, so I did put 10 back in the budget,
It's cost.
yeah, into the pots.
Okay, thank you.
Kenny, what is the average bus put on for miles each year?
Oh, most of them are averaging probably between 12 and 15,000 a year. The Margaret Murphy buses, that's up to about 40,000 a year. Our total miles last year was what, 186,000, Mary? I think it was 186. So total district miles.
Thank you. Mary, do you have a number of what the difference was?
So Mary did a quick calculation and it's not gonna be totally, completely accurate because we're not gonna know what the official interest rate will be, but she thinks it's gonna be right around 48,000.
Don?
Did we have a bus figured in last year into the budget?
I can't remember.
In the 22-23 budget, there are payments for 2 buses. One was paid off this year, so there's still one moving forward in the budget for next year.
And my next question would be, why are we doing this 54,000 as an add-on?
Because it would be a new bus. So we always bring anything that's going to be new to the board to consider.
But why wasn't that figured in the budget instead of putting it out down as an add-on?
Because it's a new bus. So we would have taken out, we would have obviously removed one payment because one bus was paid for, so that would have been not in the budget. This is a new bus, so that you have to determine if you want to continue to buy a new bus each year. In the past, we've had 2 and 3, and sometimes 3 buses in their cycle so that we,
That's what I'm trying to get at. In the cycle of paying these buses off, every year we've had money in the budget to pay these off. Now this year we come up, we gotta add on $54,000.
so we always ask when it's a new bus. Like, we don't just assume you're gonna buy a new bus. So it's always an add-on. Even when it's in a cycle, we would ask, do you want to add the next bus in?
But does it always go on as an add-on? One year, I remember we had $97,000 for a bus and we didn't use it. Now, well, my point of this is, if we've got money in there every year, I don't understand why we gotta put 54,000 as an add-on this year.
Because-
Maybe I'm just,
Yep, because we would not have kept it in the budget. Like, to keep what we have would be the current buses that we have.
so what you're saying is you lowered the budget down, whatever the payments were that we paid for the last 2 buses last year.
Right, we would not have included that bus payment for the bus that was gonna be paid off this year into next year's budget.
Okay. So we saved money, but now we're gonna add $54,000 on.
You're gonna add it on if you want a new bus, yes.
Yes, can you come to the mic, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Couple things. Because it was a long time ago when I went to school here. And I think we had like 5 or 6 buses. And then I don't know if the count of student heads increased to warrant 17 buses, but anyway, that's just a side thing. The other thing I have is on the bathroom issue. Now, the money that you proposed that would need to be spent, is that just here for the high school?
That is just the high school and it's just the hallway bathrooms. It has nothing to do with the locker rooms.
Right. How long do you suppose it would be before the elementary school or middle school will be asking for the same thing?
I can't project that. I don't know.
Okay. But it's coming, I'm sure. If this goes, and the others will want it too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Comments, Mary Ann. Oh, Mary wants to go back to the bus. Go ahead first. So we're fin-
So I want to go back to the bus conversation just for a minute. Dawn, I'm not recalling, and I'm happy to talk with you later about the 97,000 that you said was in the budget one year that we didn't spend, because there is a line for bus note principal and bus note interest. And what gets put in the budget each year is the sum of however many buses we're paying for. So I'm looking back at 2021, 91,567, and we spent 91,566 and 67 cents. So those were the three bus payments. And then during COVID, what happened was, because we were buying them with the COVID money, we didn't have to take out the bus note. So that's where we got off track with having the three payments in the budget each year. In 21-22, in the approved budget is 62,000, 22-23, 68,000 for the two buses, as I said. And when you get your full budget, you'll see that for 23-24, and the proposed budget is 37,000, because there's only one payment to be made. Part of the confusion, I think, with having it as an add-on is that there's been a change made. And it used to be that we bought the bus and then the amount didn't have to go in the budget until the following year. But now, because of the way the state has changed the reimbursement, we buy the bus and it has to be the first payment made in that same fiscal year.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mary. All right, Mary Ann.
So when RSU 56 was started, I was here. And I remember, if Kenny remembers, trying to divvy up all the buses and what are we gonna have and what are we not gonna have. And I thought, I remember, that it was always our intention, because the buses, a lot of them, more than half, had very, very high mileage, that it was always our intention to never be in that position again. And if we do get approved and can't afford it, we would replace one bus a year and not ever have a bus that had extremely high mileage that was not older than 18 years, because let's face it, that is how our children get to school. That is the priority. So that's what I remember, and I would not be opposed to the add-on of the bus. As far as JMG, I work with them. I know what they do. Full disclosure, I'm biased. I'm very partial. I like the program. I know they work with a lot of outside businesses and agencies to give the students not just the education in the school, but to bring them outside to the communities, to show different types of occupations, to have them have a sense of other businesses that are available, other skills that are available to them, because it's not just Walmart in the mill. There are a lot of other occupations that are not thought of, and they are exposed to that. So I would oppose if we did not have JMG in there. Again, I'm a little biased, but that is my opinion. I honestly don't know what the civil rights team does. I probably should. But if it's at the high school and the middle school, and if it's being asked for at the elementary school, I can't say I'm opposed to that. I really wish I knew more about it that we don't have to hear tonight. I will find out more about it myself.
Do you have any idea? Because I'm getting you like the add-ons. Is there a percentage that you are looking at?
Well, I personally am not horrified by the 2.83. I know that doesn't include all of the add-ons. Like everyone else, I'm hoping that other insurance and things like that come in lower, and this will not be a significant increase, because I don't think the community would want or can handle a 3.35% increase. But I do know that typically in budgets, 3% is pretty standard. It's just really hard with everything else that has gone up to justify a 3.35%. But I do feel at the very least that the bus and JMG are very important. Those were part of what we wanted from the beginning.
Thank you. Angela, do you have anything?
I do, yeah. I know previously in other budgets, especially the one where we went like 5 to 7 times, we could figure out like per a household for $100,000 for the home, what the difference would be between, say, the 2.83 and the 2%. Is there any quick way we could figure that out for each of the towns? I know I'm asking a lot just to give us an idea of what maybe an average household would be paying with the difference between the different percentages. Because if it's, $18 to put those 3 items in, I would be more leaning towards, like Mary Ann and Bruce have said, to go with a 2.83, just so we're not taking anything away from our students. And I do know I've actually been on different committees that have included the Civil Rights Committee, and it was behind starting that at the elementary school. And I think the highest percentage of students that we have is at the elementary school. So our hopes were that the children would go from the elementary school into the middle school and into the high school. So we do have those larger numbers because it is required that we have those available for our students as well.
Mary, is that something you can configure, or will it be next week?
So we have to ask the towns to give us the figure for how much such and such an impact would be on a house valued at $100,000. And we don't like to burden the towns by asking them too many times, but I'm happy if directed to reach out to the towns. I don't know that they would want to figure it on all 4 of these proposals. So maybe if we could narrow it down a little bit, then I could send them a couple and have those for 2 weeks from tonight.
I think we can narrow one down. Does anybody want a 3.35?
The 3.35 would include all of the add-ins, correct? And the 2.83 does not.
That is correct.
So can we have the 3.35 and the 2.83?
Okay. We also have the options too, that if we do some of the add-ons, because the administration can go back and do some cuts. I do want to say personally, for me, I do not want to see an employee be cut. We are not overstaffed. We have a little bit more staff now with ESSER money, which is COVID money. Once that's done, they're gone. That means the extra trying to get the kids back up to what they were. So we don't have extra staff.
So if we can, my suggestion would be to do the 2.83 and the 2%, because we can figure out the math from there. Ish. At $100,000.
Is that well, I'm thinking, is that viable? Meaning because I'm interested in a 2.5 with some of the add-ons. But I also, I give the administration, if we give the administration to do cut for 2.5, that was only me personally saying, I don't want to see a position cut. I don't feel that's positive. We went through that when we first started, and I just don't want to see that. But is getting the spectrum of them, a 2.83 and a 2, could we figure out or estimate what it would be for a house? I'm asking the mathematician.
So whatever we ask, that actually goes out to the 4 towns to calculate, because that's not something that Mary does. We send those
Yeah.
percentages to the towns. So my recommendation would be you pick a couple and not ask them to do 3 or 4 or 5, because I know that they're busy as well. And Alicia's nodding her head yes out there from
Yeah.
Dixfield, so.
I'm gonna do Liz, then Larry.
Yeah, I would be interested in the 2.5 find out where that falls.
Larry?
I agree that 3.35 is out of the question. 2, it would be wonderful. I think 2.5 would be the median that we should shoot for. I think it's doable. If it's doable for 2.5, we might look at 2 and see if we can come up with something. But 2.5 would be something I would go for.
Carl?
Yeah, I just have it. The bus is heavily funded through the state, correct? You said we're in the second round of like, remember you said we got approved to get a new bus and then the second round and so we're kind of doing it because it's like too good to pass up, or that's the way I understand when you come up here. But the JMG, isn't there like 36% of the kids in that?
Yes, that's what they were, last time, there was, I think it's 70-something kids in it, and that's about 33% of our student body that participate in JMG here at Jericho High School.
So would we have to hire another aide or something? Because those 36% of the kids are gonna need to be supervised somewhere besides that JMG advisor, correct? Do they actually go to a classroom or?
They do go to a classroom now, and they would be distributed amongst other classes and learning labs if they didn't pick up the other class.
Just seems like a high percentage for, I guess it was free all along, and now the state shares the bulk of the cost, correct? The whole
So
program.
what was explained to us last time is that the state does give allocations to jobs for Maine grads, but they also have private donors that support it. They are asking for schools to share in a third of the cost eventually. So I just want to be clear, it's 13,500 year 1, 25,000 year 2, 27,000 year 3 is what they're asking for. So a third of the cost of jobs for Maine grads at Jericho High School. And they're looking for that so that their private donors can say, yes, these schools really do appreciate and support this, as opposed to just a gift from private donors combined with what they get from the Maine Department of Education in their general aid fund.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, as far as the bus, I mean, if we did, are the buses full of kids? I mean, yeah.
To the mic.
Sorry.
So we're probably averaging, I'd say 52 to 58 kids on a bus.
That's pretty near full.
Yeah. Yeah, there's 2 to a seat, most of them. We're a lot of days, we look at runs, we do a little bit of shuffling around if we have to, but they're full.
And could you clarify that how many vans we got that go down to different places? Thank you.
Yeah, so
And the big bus.
I mean, I'd hate to pass up on the JMG, the bus and everything, but if we want to come in at 2%, we'd have to cut a position, or the administrators would have to cut something, right? I don't know. They said they cut it pretty tight anyway, so.
Go ahead, Kenny.
So we currently have 5 vans. So we run 3 a day to Pennacook up the Mountain Valley. We had taken one of the ones that's got 320,000 on it. So we use it at the shop to run around for parts and back and forth getting buses and everything. We're running 5 of them a day. We have a lot of students that, not a lot of students, but a few students that like on a modified day. So they're getting used pretty much at least probably 6 hours a day.
Thank you, Kenny.
Oh. Thank you. So we got thank you, Kenny.
Yeah.
Oh, Larry. has-
When you buy a new bus, is there a sell back on the old bus? Do you get any money back on the old bus at all?
We put you know, from time to time, we put like 3 or 4 out to bid or whatever we have. I mean, we get, I think the last one we got, what, 1,100 was the highest we got, and probably the lowest was like, I'd say, you know, between $5 and $1,000 if you're lucky.
Miles are usually on them when we
Oh, geez,
retire.
the ones that we sold last fall was, I think they were up like 250,000.
I'm gonna thank you, Kenny. I'm gonna to get an idea of your range.
Yeah, I'd like to stay in the 2.83, but I'd hate to cut any programs, but I know Canton went up quite a bit because of the valuation of the windmills, but also there's more tax revenue coming into town from the windmills, so they might share some of that, but they're not represented here, so. Yeah, I'd like the 2.83.
Thank you. Liz?
If somebody said that I had to make a decision on what I would keep and what I would get rid of, if I had to do it in bare bones, I'd keep a bus and get rid of JMG and the civil rights, because I think the bus is more important.
Thank you.
Just to
ahead,
go off the
Deanna.
JMG thing, I think that we're sort of missing a mark here. We're talking about cutting a position, but asking outside people to come in and teach our students. I think, I think about, like I said, I was only in this school 12 years ago, and every service I've heard from JMG was provided, through different activities, or, we had career days and things like that, where we had outside people in our own community coming in, and students were, I think specifically seniors, were broken up and got to have one-on-one time with different community members that way. And you were exposed to different careers that way. And there was a wide variety. Again, there was the Future Perspectives class that I believe every senior had to take. So we have the 30% in JMG. Well, there's close to 100% of your seniors engaging in Future Perspectives right there. So I think if we're talking about cutting somebody's position versus cutting an outside program that our teachers could probably fulfill, I think it's worth looking at asking what our own teachers can provide first.
What year do they take it now? Future Perspectives?
They do a partial future perspectives as freshmen, talking about how to be a high school student, what do you need to know and be able to do to be a high school student. And then they take the other part of future perspectives as a senior, as you're getting ready to leave Darrigo High School. What else do you need to know to be out there in the world?
Thank you. Tim?
First of all, a question. If the add-ons are included, that means cuts have to be made.
That would be correct, I think, depending on where insurance comes in, but even if it came in at 0, it's not going to cover I'd have to go back to where my 3 point. So, yes, there would have to be cuts.
And the administrators came in with no increases this year.
Yes, so if you recall at the beginning of this, with the uncontrollables, we were at 3.1 something, and with the administrative cuts on what they could control, we were at the 2.83.
So if additional cuts have to be made, you really can't nickel and dime them. You're talking positions?
There are no more nickels and dimes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak from the different towns? I know we have somebody from Canton. You don't have to. You can come out, okay, or Carthage, or Peru, because I remember you, and you've already spoken. So if nobody does, all right. I know we're all off the different. Well, I tried to write down what everybody. I know Don was 2. Larry could live with a 2.5, and that's what I had said. You could adjust, you know what I mean? Not the 2.52. Carl, Bruce, Mary Ann, 2.83. Deanna, I don't know, just to give a rough idea, does that? But
I'd say 2.5.
2.5. 2.83. Okay, so what I'm hearing is, I know Don's a two, Angela, what did you say? So I don't forget you.
I was either between 2.5 and 2.83.
Okay, and Liz told me 2.5. So what I'm hearing is 2.83, 2.5. Majority, not that the two, and with add-on, some said with add-ons, some said without. We could do a thumb with, we can do, you would like the bus? Just, we're not voting today. It's just to get an idea with cuts or as an add-on. So how many, I'm just gonna try to get a consensus.
So I
I'm
just have to
trying.
say, like, with the bus, if you do with the bus at 2.5 or 2.83, we are talking cut. So it's not
Correct.
just.
Yes,
The
I
way
know.
way you said it sounded like
No, I meant with
one or the
if
other, so.
we added it up, you know what I mean? Saying I knew that it could be added on and then it would still be cuts, you know, I'm trying to there's two ways to do. If we do a bus and we want this, correct, we would have to cut. And by then, next week, or not next week, God forbid, April 11th, we'll have the insurance, but would that cover all the bus? Or what percentages?
If it comes in at zero, it would be 99,828 for savings. I don't know. We've had 2 years of zero. That doesn't seem likely to me, but we would use that savings first to offset something else. So I don't know. I don't want to overtake the board because this is
Yeah.
your budget. But if you want to say 2.5 and 2.83,
Mhm.
and then the administrative team could come in and say, this is 2.5, this is what you would take out if you wanted the bus. This is
Okay, that would
like
work.
maybe that's a better way to
Yes,
look at it.
that's a good way.
Because they do have a meeting with me on the 10th, which is the day we're supposed to get our final numbers from insurance, so that we could potentially work it that way for you, if you would like.
Okay.
I need direction because so far
All
we've
right,
just sort of been.
you're making sense, not that you aren't making sense, but I'm trying to get that if we got them two numbers and then you guys can look at saying add-ons of a bus and then add-on of GMG or whatever. And then that would give us an idea. So it's like a scenario of percentage, but there would be cuts. Is that difficult? No.
We will do what you would like, Madam
Okay.
Chair.
Well, no, I mean, I'm
think
trying
it's
to get a
doable to
scenario
do it that
because
way.
it was half and half where a lot of people thought the bus was important. Some thought we shouldn't do it this year. But like some of us said, we don't want to lose staff or things. So I don't know any other way.
So I just want to be clear on what we're doing. We're going to ask the 4 towns for a 2.50 impact and a 2.83 impact. We're going to say, this is what you get at 2.50. If you want a bus, this is what we'd have to trade out. If you want JMG, this is what you'd trade out. And if you want civil rights, this is what you trade out. And we do the same thing for 2.83.
Correct. Don.
I want to touch on something because I don't know if this has been figured in the budget or not. Back when Pam give her presentation on the office of the principal, they had a 1 to 5 year plan. Has any of that money been figured into this budget?
That money is in there for the office of the principal and the superintendent.
When are we going to get a chance to vote on that?
When you approve the whole budget, when we see the whole budget, which we will see Friday, and then we approve
So what does that stand at now? I'm looking at one version here and I'm looking at another version over there.
I'm not sure what your question is.
what is
Well,
the amount?
I guess my question is gonna be, when we originally started, it was gonna be a double thing. Now I'm looking at something where it says that the superintendent's payroll line will increase by $6,250, as previously discussed. I got a couple problems, and I discussed that once before, which got left out of the minutes, but that's all right. My big question is, you do, the principal, I don't see why you shouldn't get something extra for the principal. But I go back that I don't want, if we give you that $31,000, that's putting, and it's not you, it's this job. That's putting that job up at $160,000 for the superintendent of this school. When it's been on TV that we have superintendents in Lewiston, Auburn, and Portland that are working for less than $130,000 a year in schools that are a lot bigger than ours.
I would, we will get the numbers because I do not believe that Portland makes that. They have assistants.
It was on TV.
Okay.
I don't know 100% sure.
Because I do
But
know,
but I'm going to tell you one thing right now, this market correction BS is my best thing that I can say.
so Dawn, when she retires and we have such a low figure for both and does 3 jobs, I'm talking 3 jobs.
No.
We are
got
not-
3 titles. No, 2 titles. I don't know where we come up with this third one.
We do not have an administrative assistant. Do you think that every superintendent has an administrative assistant, usually in the size, this size? And in Portland, they have assistant superintendents. So we can get them numbers. I'm not, which we should have for next week.
We should have had numbers before we even started discussing all this.
So the numbers that were presented in the previous overviews is an increase to the principal's salary of $6,250, increase of the superintendent's salary of $6,250.
And what is the superintendent's salary in the budget?
The typical range falls between 139,800, 382 up to 205,900. Like I say, that's in Portland, so they're a lot bigger than we are, but I guess so we can vote this down next time around, is what you're saying.
So the current salary in the budget for the superintendent is $71,641. That's what's in there for the superintendent.
And what's
We-
in there for a principal?
They're the same, because it's just split 50-50.
And what is our current principals, other positions? Principals of, say, what is our middle school principal make? What is our, I know that's split in half, but what is, I know it's due to seniority, well, same thing.
Mary is pulling that out for you. So John, I think what you're saying is absolutely correct in terms of most superintendents make somewhere around 130,000. That was the conversation we had with finance and personnel when we talked about this. If you recall, when I turned 58, it dawned on me that in 4 years, I'm eligible for retirement. I probably will work till 65, but who knows?
The principal under salary.com is 88 to 140, under Glassdoor, 53 to 110, ZipRecruiter, 79 to 140.
So the situation that you have here in Derigo is that in the 2019-20 budget, I think was the year we went through 5 budget attempts, in order to get a budget passed, the superintendent principal position was created without an increase in pay. I've done that for the last 4 years. I am concerned that when I retire, you are not going to be able to hire somebody to come in here and be the superintendent, the principal, and the administrative assistant to the superintendent for $130,000. So we talked about the fact that you need to get that up there, and it seemed like it was better with the Finance and Personnel Committee to do that in steps over the next 5 years, as opposed to doing one lump sum when this happens. So that was the conversation behind this increase, and we did it over 5 years to make it more palatable than a one-time cliff that you could be facing when I leave or when I retire. So it just, that's how it came to be.
Mary?
The amount in the 23-24 budget for the DES principal is 99,506. And for 23-24 for the DMS principal, keep in mind that that person is 75% principal. So the 75% is 71,078.
Any other questions on that? So if we can get more, like, I don't know if we can get the local, I know I meant around surrounding instead of what is, because the ones around usually don't have assistants, they're just themselves. What?
I don't know any superintendent in this area that does not have an administrative assistant other than yours truly.
Oh, I know that. I meant assistant superintendent too.
Some of them do and some of them don't. So
All right.
I will get that laid out for you.
Yes.
For the surrounding areas if you would like.
Bruce?
I just want to follow up with a little bit as if you break it down and you look at what our superintendent / principal is doing. And if you broke it into two different positions, you'd have two different salaries. If you add those up real quick, you can find that would be a lot more than what we're paying our superintendent / principal. And then you also got to look at the other side of this part of this piece of the puzzle is the benefits package. So again, you're the same thing. If you have two people doing two different jobs, you're going to have an additional benefit package that you'd be paying out for someone else as well. So we've got one benefit package and we're going to pay someone a little bit more of an increase in pay for everything that's being done. Or if we decided all of a sudden that our superintendent next year said, I only want to be the superintendent. So this is what my salary is going to be. This is what my benefits are going to be. And now all of a sudden, this region's got to now hire a principal for this high school and a benefit package for this high school. I don't know about you guys, but I know my math real quick tells me it's going to cost us a lot of money.
Liz?
Do you have any idea if there are any of the schools that are in our situation, small schools, small communities that do the same thing, that have a dual role like you do? Do you know offhand?
I do not know where they are offhand. I think there's 2 or 3 across the state. Very few of them in our area do the combined position.
That would be interesting to see how they pay. I think a raise is probably good, but I think it would be more in my liking if it was 3 for each position instead of 6 for each position, the total 6 and not 13. And yes, increase over the next so many years. Do we revisit that every year? So like next year, when we come around to this time, do we go again and say, okay, so do we want to hold it at that? Say we went with 3 and 3 or 35 and 35. I'm not quibbling over, but I'm just saying every year we revisit it to see if it's the same thing. Then if things are different, I mean, things can be different next year, either better or worse. So I wouldn't want to lock in for 5 years at a certain amount of money to bring us up to say 170,000 or 165,000 for the next person who steps in your shoes.
Number one, we can't lock in over 3 years anyways.
Right. So
I
it's
think
a
to get-
revisit then every year.
Usually we do it every
Right.
year
Yeah.
anyways.
But percentage wise, I'm thinking about a raise that a person gets that works anywhere. It's usually 3% a year.
We
something like
usually,
that.
well, I can say with negotiations, and I think one unit got 1.3. Nobody's had a 3 point,
Yeah,
except the teachers, because that whole schedule changed.
So what percentage is that raise that you're asking for then for 6 and 6, 13 something? What percentage?
Because what we call it is an adjustment, which I didn't know with the admin association. Because that's where the principal is the admin is just the local. Okay. because usually when something is low, we had to adjust a few times some other ones. The first year, wasn't it 0? Charlie, didn't you guys do 0 when we first started? Correct. And then we,
Are you waiting for my answer? Okay.
sorry, yes.
So the 6,250 times 2 for the principal and the superintendent, it would be 12,500, and that's a 9.7% increase over the 22-23 salary.
Don,
Um, Can you figure what that, what I'm looking at here, on the original paperwork was from the office of the principal, the 5-year contract? What is that gonna contain, for the total of the 5 years? And just how much is going to each one?
I don't know what the document is that you're looking at. Can I come down and take it or borrow it?
Well, the way I'm reading it and from what I'm understanding what you're talking about, Pam is gonna get $6,250 for the principal in this line, and she's gonna get $6,250 for superintendent.
Right.
I guess for that 5-year contract, how much is that gonna cost? What are we talking about in total dollar amount? I figured it one way. Somebody told me I didn't figure it right, but
So basically you're asking what is 12,500 times 5 years, correct? So to answer the first part of the question, 12,500 times 5 is 62,500. And I'm not sure I understand your second question, because let's say an administrator gets a 2% raise in 23-24, then that becomes the base to add a percentage increase to for 24-25.
right. But what I'm saying is each year she'll come up 12,500 between the two job titles. And that will be her base the second year out. You double that 12,500, right?
If you went back to what she was making in 22-23, yes.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying. And when you add these all up, at the end of the 5 years, that's what the total we're talking about.
So the math that you did, you took 12,500 the first year, then you took 25,000 on top of what the 22-23 salary was for the second year, and then 37,500 the third year, because you kept adding.
And that's the way it's gonna figure out is, am I right in my calculations or am I completely wrong?
Well, you can't take that amount that you came up with and add it to the 22-23 salary, because then it's going to skew what her salary will be 5 years from now.
Right, but you're gonna pay her that 12,500 on her base salary. So after the first year, her base salary goes up 12,500.
I think that's the intent, yes.
In the second year, because her salary went up 12,500, we're gonna give her another 12,500. So that second year, it actually comes in at 25 something.
But you still have to, if you're going to say that it's 25,000 more, you have to say it's 25,000 more than the 22-23 salary,
Yeah,
not than the 23-24 salary.
but no, but each year you go down, you add to her base
So the intent of this is, I don't even know what my current salary is, 128?
Yes.
So 128. And then in 5 years, it will go up by 62,500. So you would be getting, pushing up into that, I don't know what that is. So you'd be at 190,717, which would allow you to potentially hire 2 people after that if you needed to. Would still probably be a little less than what you would need, given that, as Bruce pointed out, that's one benefits package and not 2 or 3, because if you had to hire a superintendent, like, I'm just gonna be honest, I can go anywhere for 130,000 and be a straight superintendent. If you have to hire a principal, you're talking about right around 100,000 for a high school principal. And then if you have to get an administrative assistant, you're talking 40, 45, and then you gotta add your 3 benefits packages in there. So it's still probably gonna be short, but I think, knowing people, there's probably somebody out there that would say, oh yeah, for that, I'll come and do 3 jobs. Like, and come here, and Alicia's shaking her head no. But I think somebody might be willing to come at that to do 3 jobs. But if not, at least you're close enough so that if you have to hire more and split them, you'll be in a position where you have that money in your budget to do so.
Because when we hire, there's a range that goes for any administrator. I know it's in the administrative contract. They don't automatically get because of experience, but also, you know, sometimes we've hired superintendents who have never been a superintendent. So you lower, but then it gives us, when she does get done, because it would be amazing to find someone who could do both. But if we don't, that gives us the option, so we're not scrambling for money we don't have to hire somebody to do 2 jobs. Cause I mean, we're having enough trouble with this one retiring who does 3 jobs. So, I just think it's a good way for us to be prepared and not be sitting there, because, most of the time I made her take whatever they were getting and she didn't want to, and that was 1 or 2%. So, so it's not about her, it's about what in the future, because we're very fortunate to have a good administrators, and they stay because we do so well. But we just gotta be, just like the contingency with a bus and a bus garage, you gotta look about, you know, we do so well because we have good leaders, and we do well as leaders. So,
I've got to say, this was not about Pam. What I'm arguing against is kicking the superintendent pay up, which I think is more than our district should have to. But that being said, I do believe that my figures that I said the first time we got this thing out is around $187,500. That being said, that'll be up to the people to vote and figure out what they want to do.
when we do put the budget, Mary can tell me, by law and budgetary wise, the percentage, her in salary that is part of this principal is under principal. The part that's under superintendent is under superintendent. So it is divided in the budget.
It is divided in the budget, and I understand that. And I don't have a problem with it. I just have a problem that in 5 years, and this is gonna sound like I'm picking on them, I'm not, I don't care who's
No,
doing this
it
job.
doesn't.
In 5 years, we're giving them $187,500 increase in pay from today's salary.
Who's ever in the position, the 2 positions right now. But if we don't have a 2 position, number one, it depends on who we hire. We do not give the highest amount of money. That is always negotiated. And so like Bruce had said, And I'm thinking, and I may be wrong, I would be love to get one person. I don't see that happening. And if we got two, that includes benefits, which are usually 20 plus if it's family. I mean, single is up to over 15, I think. So it's where we want to be, so we are not backtracking, because I don't ever want to be in our first year as RSU56. That was awful. That was horrible. It was awful. It was.
Can I just?
Yes, go ahead.
So I think, because I would want to be above board with this, I don't want it to be, feel like it's anything but above board. I think the board needs to decide if this should go in or out, only because next week the board can choose to put it in or choose to take it out. But when it goes to the budget hearing, when we're here, you can't say take out 12.5 from that line. You can say take out 12.5 from the budget, and the administrative team gets to decide where it comes from. So I don't want anybody to feel like it's nothing but clear and above board. So I really would like, at least under general consensus, to know whether the board wants this in or not.
Do you want that tonight?
I think it makes a difference when we put our
Okay.
budget together, for sure.
Okay. So, it's not a vote, it'd be a what do you call it? Thumbs down? Thumbs down? There, yeah, Mary. Yeah, general consensus.
So I just wanted to say, I know that there are a lot of job openings for superintendents in the state of Maine. There are a lot of principal positions available right now in the state of Maine. And I know, Pam, you said you're not looking to retire now, but in 4 years you can, maybe you'll stay. That doesn't mean that you would want to stay here if another position was better for you at wherever you are in your life. Love to have you here. I'm thrilled to death you're here. But if any circumstance changed in the next 6 months and you wanted to apply for a position that was simply superintendent somewhere else, we would be in a god-awful position, because we do not have the money to hire two people. And we are not going to be fortunate enough to have somebody with this amount of experience. And I know we're not supposed to talk about the person, we're supposed to talk about the position. But the bottom line is, we're not in a position to hire 2 to 2.5 people, an admin, a superintendent, and a principal that's going to keep us financially sound and to do all of those jobs and to do it as well. We are not in that position right now. I don't see it for the next couple of years. Before I vote.
Before you vote. Carl?
Well, I'm just remembering, when you first said it, I thought it was like, you gotta give me a raise or I'm gonna leave. And I got thinking. And then I thought it was a little excessive, like Liz said. But then I remember when we tried to hire the last principal and we hired her 2 days before school started and it was a total disaster. So, I don't know. That's just what I'd like to add.
Okay, Larry?
I'm not a math person at all. And I'm listening to this and I agree with Pam saying, and I agree with Don saying, could we sunset the 6250 and just vote on it every year? Is that a possibility?
It would always be voted on every year, because it would be, this is year 1 of 5. So next year you would have the same discussion.
Okay, so
Potentially.
if the voters don't like it this year, next year they can vote it out.
So I want to be clear again how this goes. So when the voters come to our budget hearing here at the high school, they can say, raise up or down any of the cost centers. They do not have the ability to say, we want the 12.5 out of the superintendent's salary, or the 6.250 out of the superintendent's salary. So the best place to have that conversation is here, because they can raise or lower it, but they can't tell you what lines it's coming out of, other than a cost center. Makes sense? I just want to be clear, like, I don't want you to think that the voters can pick and choose, because that's not typically how it works.
Okay. Yes, you did. So all I need is live, down, up. So for this year, I live with it. This is negotiations. Up, down, live with. Just an idea. So you can give me a thumb. That would be down. You mean as is, you mean, not have it? Yeah. Okay. All right, so. I'm doing, I just get, live with, all right, and the majority, so it's a go to endless, yes. Oh, Angela, I'm sorry, I can't see your thumb. Is she still here? She gone? Okay. All
To-
right.
To qualify where I was coming from was just the fact that, yes, I do think that there should be an increase. Absolutely. I'm all for it. I guess, I don't know if I explained it well or not, but I just thought half of each of those on each position, maybe 3,500, but I don't know any way to put that out there. If nobody wants to discuss that or even consider that, then, majority always rules anyway. So whatever, we'll just go with it.
And we will discuss it every year. So, God forbid, it could be worse. The door it shouldn't be. Oh, no. No. All right. Bruce, okay, we're done the budget. They got their directions.
So far, everyone, we've heard from all the board members except chairperson. What have you come up with a
I
number?
did 2.5, so when they asked for the 2.2, 2.83 and 2.5.
Okay, thank you.
So I thought we agreed upon, and we were asking for 2.50 and 2.83.
Yes, he didn't hear me.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Just want to be
That's
clear
all
on
right.
my assignment.
He's making sure I put everybody else on the spot and I did it. Okay, you probably don't have a Region 9 update.
The only thing I will give you for Region 9 update is that I have another finance committee meeting with them this Thursday. So that's all I can say.
All right, thank you. And Pam did send us the date of the vote. May something, I couldn't remember, but it was emailed to us. Superintendent's report.
So I just want to reiterate that we did have bus garage bid openings yesterday. The low bid did come in at $963,700 by Sheridan Constructions of Fairfield, Maine. Aaron Wilson, who's from Associated Design Partners Incorporated, who's the architect that's been working with us, is going to review it to make sure it fits all the specs. And I just want you to know that the other bids ranged from $998 to $1.4 million. So that's where the specs came in. And I will invite Mr. Long to come up for his middle school curriculum coordinator report.
Thank you. So let's talk about something other than a budget for a minute. Just gonna wait for that to get projected. Just to be clear, I'm providing the building report for the middle school. I'll come back at a later date and do the curriculum-y stuff. All right. All right, so there's our pretty picture to get started. Next slide, please. All right, so I always start with an enrollment update. You can see our October enrollment and our April enrollment. We lost a couple, we gained a couple, we came out the same. Enrollment remains steady. It is worth noting, though, in general terms, that if you were to compare the number of students with IEPs who have moved into my building versus those students who had left my building, the percentage of students with special education services has increased. Next slide, please. Attendance data. All right. So currently, the middle school has one active truancy case. I've been working very close with the superintendent on that issue. We have 3 instances where students became truant, then they're returned to school. So those are considered paused cases. We have 24 students who have received warnings. That's a major increase from last year, but a return to kind of what it had been previously. And part of why that is the case is because during sort of the we're back in school, but the COVID rules kind of complicate what's excused and not excused. During that period of time, we had some situations where there were kiddos who were chronically absent, but they were not on my warning list because why they were absent was being excused. Does that make sense? So in some ways, really, I still feel like the biggest issue my building faces is more so chronic absenteeism. The situation where I have kiddos and families who are missing a lot of school. Really, the whole culture around school attendance shifted pretty dramatically throughout the country during COVID. The very culture of what you fight through and go to school. If you have a tummy ache, should you stay home or not? Right? These sorts of things. So I still feel like my biggest issue is chronic absenteeism. And the reason why the number of warnings is high and the number of actual truancy cases is low is because a lot of the time, once I put in the steps that I take, which involves warnings, meetings, talking to my social worker, talking to me, 9 out of 10 times it's a communication issue. And once I can get the parent to understand that, we have to have better communication here. I'm on your side, but you need to communicate with us when your kiddo is going to miss school. A lot of the time, those don't become actual truancy cases by the way the law works in the state of Maine. Next slide, please. All righty. So we took our fall NWEAs, our winter NWEAs, the end of January. When I present to you, I kind of always do it the same way. When I present to you my fall data, I focus on achievement. When I present to you my spring data, I focus on achievement. When I present to you my winter data, I focus on growth. This was learned over time that this is the best way to think about and use this information. So what I presented for you here is the percentage of students last year to this year. This is for English language arts in terms of the percentage of students who met their expected growth from fall to winter. Okay. So you can see that last year we had 45% of the students meet their expected growth from fall to winter. But I'm a nerd, so I'm going to give you a caveat about how this assessment works, because I can't help myself. So the NWEA has a really large standard deviation. So what ends up happening is the margin of error that they report on their growth scores is really big. So you wind up having this percentage of students who for sure met their growth goal, but actually to meet your growth goal, you have to blow it out of the water to do it for sure, to get out of the margin of error for that. Then you have your yes with an asterisk, which means that yes, you met your growth goal, but it falls within the margin of error. I combine those two because in fairness to the kids, all those kids met their growth goal. Like if you look at the actual number, they all met it. Then you have this no with an asterisk. That no is, it doesn't look like you met your growth goal, but you still grew. You grew enough that maybe you met your growth goal, but it falls within the margin of error. So I present that as a separate category. And then the no, the just no is, yeah, you definitely did not meet your growth goal. So although we have a tendency in education to look at the green bar, what matters most to me is actually the red, because I want to see that red get smaller and smaller and smaller. What you see from 21-22 to 22-23, I'm happy to report that we had a 7% increase in the percentage of kids who were able to meet their growth goal from fall to winter. The hard work of our ELA interventionists is a big part of why that's been able to happen, as well as our amazing English teachers. But I also want to point out to you, because I think it's always worthwhile to use longitudinal information. In 17-18, our first year as a district, 43% of the kids at the middle school that year were meeting their growth expectation. So when you compare that figure to where we are this year, that's a 10% improvement of what our students have been able to achieve. That was my building goal at one point in time. So next slide, please. Here's the exciting part. So in mathematics, Last year, we saw 50% of our students, and I went and double checked these numbers to make sure I was doing it correct, and I was. 50% of our students at the middle school met their growth goal fall to winter last year. This year, 56% of our students met their growth goal fall to winter. When we first became a district, that number was only 27%. So that is a byproduct of the use of a really good math interventionist. That's the byproduct of us now having a true math curriculum that has been adopted K-12. That is a byproduct of some of the interventions kind of systems that we've been able to put into place, and the use of software called IXL, which really increases, kids don't like practicing math sometimes, but the software allows for us to track and make decisions based on the kids doing the math practice as they need to do, and we can verify that they're actually doing it. And it's a byproduct of us using some of our other probes, such as Easy CBM. These are the shorter tests that we give kids to progress monitor to identify kids who need to work with our interventionist more so one-on-one. So I'm proud of that. Sorry to stand up here with a microphone and say that, but I'm proud of my staff. That's a big deal. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's some fun. I like longitudinal data, so I put together the last 6 years. The last 6 years, every month. So what you see there is average office referrals per day by month. You see those really short yellow lines and those pretty short red lines. Those were the COVID years. Okay, so we had fewer office referrals. I had fewer kids in school. I also had, things that were in place that were incredibly restrictive, which prevented a lot of things from happening perhaps, but it was not the free experience I want my middle school kids to have either. And then you can see that depending on the year, every year we have 1 month that's really exceptional. So this year, the month of October was an exceptionally challenging month. I don't know why. I have theories. I won't bore you with them, but we had an extraordinary amount of behavioral issues in our building in October. Changes were made, things happened, things got better in November. They stayed pretty steady for December. And then we came back from winter break and behavior popped back up again, started to increase in January. February was rough, and now we're settling back down again in the month of March. It has been a hard year. We now have 20 students who are currently on our tier 2 check and check out behavior plan. That figure last year was 12. I have 5 students who are on individual crisis management plans. That's up from 2. Next slide, please. However, it is important to note that in my school of 170 kids, 16 students account for 67% of all the referrals. So it is not that everyone is struggling. It's that I have a core population who's struggling quite a bit. And my ability to work with them and manage those behaviors has a big influence on what happens any given month. So again, about 10% of my population makes up 2/3 of the referrals. And that's the reality of what we're working with. So you probably are wondering this. Next slide, please. So what are you doing about it, Jason? That's lovely. We like your charts. So what? So here's what we've been doing. The first step was for me to respond to what I saw as my highest incident issues. We use SWIS, School-Wide Information System, where all of our office referral information is put into a database. And I'm allowed to analyze that. And I was able to figure out that big jump you saw in October had a lot to do with one class, period 7. So I took over period 7 for that one class. I taught it myself. Because dang it, I'm not letting this go down. So I did that. Then what we also did is we moved our alt ed population, which was struggling, to do some kind of like logotherapy kind of work, some positive service learning activities in order to build their self-esteem and confidence about the school experience, get them back on track. We started working with the elementary school. We were visiting the pre-K every other week. We put together the Veterans Luncheon. My alt ed students were integral in putting together that in the assembly. And the students, we read a book and had I can't remember the name of the kennel, but we had a dog sled team come because the book was about dog sledding, so they could have that experience. We did some other activities that were all just meant to really work hard to engage the kids. The other thing that we did is we began to transition our alt ed program because we know that's a COVID funded program. I am realistic that when COVID money is gone, that we're probably unlikely to have a position, anything like that. So we began to kind of move away from a contained model to more of a blended school day and treating the alt ed program like it can be a break in the day. Like a student who's really struggling as a particular academic weakness, we can give it to them in a kind of independent study environment, but in the other classes, they're going to return to regular education. We've had a lot more success helping students get through the day that way. The other piece is we were able to use some repurposed COVID funds to hire temporary, just for this year, just until June, an Ed Tech 1. And what that Ed Tech 1 was able to do is support my alt ed population so that if I had a student who was really, really struggling, I didn't have one teacher with that whole group and everything's, spiraling. Like now I have a situation where if someone needs to go take a walk, they can go take a walk safely because I have another adult in the room to support that. So that was put into place. Now, what about behavior prevention? Because prevention is really, I think, the main goal of most of my day. We integrated a new tier 1 school-wide PBIS system. We call it Cougar Paws. So now we have a different Cougar Paw challenge every 6 weeks or so. Right now it's cooperation. The first one we had was on kindness, and students are identified by staff as doing a good thing. And we have these cute little Cougar Paws that they're little paper Cougar Paws, and the teacher will write a note and give it to the kid. The kid will come down to the office, hand it into the secretary. Secretary holds on to it. Every Friday we have a raffle. I read, as the principal, every single positive thing that someone had to say about a kid to that grade every Friday. We pull a little raffle, we get a little prize card. That sounds silly, they love it. And then all of the paws go up on a board, and when we cover the board, we have a school-wide celebration. Why is that important? That is important because you don't just change the behavior of a school by having hard consequences for the kids who struggle. You need to recognize the kids are doing things right. You need to make them know that their behavior matters too. You want to recognize it. And you want to find the good things that the struggling students are doing, because every kid has good in them. And if you can focus on that, you can help them turn things around. I've had more parent meetings than I can remember. I've made more counseling referrals than I can remember. And we've built a more robust partnership with the Larry Labonte Recovery Center, because the reality is, folks, that a lot of the issues that my students are having is because they have loved ones who have been affected by substance abuse. Professional development for staff. This is another key piece. You have to train your staff up in order to know how to handle students when they're in challenging situations. I led a book study with all of my new staff on the name of the book was Hacking School Discipline, but it kind of followed the restorative justice, restorative practices model, which is a more trauma-informed model on how to handle classroom management. And then I sent 4 members of my staff to, it was put on by MADSEC, which is the Maine State's Special Education Organization Association. It was a 3-part series on minimizing challenging behaviors in the general education classroom, because I want to coach my teachers up on how to handle those sorts of situations so they can deal with them locally. And then it was a matter of expanding existing practices that work. A whole slide is not on the screen right now, Sean, but nope, go back. Yep. Okay. Well, good enough. That's my fault. Nope, that ain't your fault. That's my fault. So I have some students who have made a little bit of a habit of not using their laptops exactly the way I want them to. So we call the office plan, and I've got a big old plastic cart in the office. And I've got a number of students that's where their laptop lives. And if a teacher says you have to have a laptop, we can't get by without it, they come down, they just use it for that, then it goes back in the cart. And then finally, we've increased, as I already said, the number of individual crisis management plans, as well as the check and check out plans that we use. So we have been turning things around, but boy, oh boy, it's been hard. Next slide, please. Let's talk about some of the fun stuff. So winter, spring, what are we able to offer at our middle school? We have a student council. We have a speech and debate club. We have a early act club, which meets periodically, and they focus on community service. We do have a civil rights team. They're meeting regularly now. They have more than 5 members, but on average, according to their advisor, Earl Couture, they average 5 members in attendance. One of the challenges with these sorts of clubs is you have kids who do sports. And so you see in between the sports seasons, like membership goes up, and then sports season rolls around and membership kind of dips again. So it kind of averages out. It's been averaged out to 5. We have a Positive Cougar Club, which is not something that we pay for. We have a relationship with the River Valley Healthy Communities Coalition, and they come over and they have an anti-bullying club that they call the Positive Cougar Club. They meet during our school-wide study hall on Thursdays. We have a craft club. That's actually a staff member that's volunteering her time because she saw a need and wanted to do it. That's one of the better attended clubs I have, quite frankly. Kids love doing that stuff. Mr. Hamalainen has been an amazing band and chorus teacher for us. We are seeing the number of kiddos engaged in music just continue to skyrocket. It's so cool. I included a picture here from the winter concert where the middle school choir was performing at I believe it's the Dixville Congregational Church, because the acoustics were so cool in there. It's just so awesome. We offer wrestling. Our wrestling team is incredibly successful. We have a number of students who are going to be going to the state championships this coming week on Saturday. We have a yearbook. Yearbook has traditionally been a stipend, but I spoke to the yearbook person and they've opened it up to be a club, not just the preparer of the yearbook, so that students can start getting some experience before high school. We do offer skiing. The drama club, which is obviously a district-wide piece. A number of middle school students are part of the drama club. We have a technology club that came originally from a grant that was written by a teacher. We offer basketball. I don't know if you knew that. Dirigo's got a little bit of a basketball thing going for it. We also have unified basketball, which is started off as a grant from the Special Olympics, so that students with special needs are also able to kind of get the limelight. We have a track program that right now has it's like 30 kids signed up for it this spring. Obviously, we offer baseball and softball. So why do I point out all these things? I believe middle school is about relationships, and every middle school kid needs to find something that they can connect with and understand. And I love math and I love reading, and it's a priority for me. But I know I can help a kid take the next step if they can find a place where they feel like they fit in. And we've worked really hard and really creatively to offer a meaningful experience for all of our students. And when you look around the state and you look at the number of kids participating in sports and participating in clubs, it's dropping, but it's not dropping in Dirigo. Our number in sports are good, and that's important. We can't lose that. That saves an awful lot of kids from bad situations, that they're part of a team or a club and they find that connection with each other. It's part of why I love working here. We get that here. Next slide, please. Whoop, back one. Okay, special events. So we do some stuff too. This November, the middle school, with the help of Alt Ed, but also the help of Gina and the nutrition department, we put on our first Veterans Day luncheon. It was a huge success. We had 20 or so veterans who were friends or relatives of the kids who attend my school. And they came in and we gave them a nice big turkey dinner. And then we had an assembly with a panel discussion, and kids could hear about the different experiences and opportunities that members of the service have had. We had our winter celebration day, which is just kind of a fun day that we have every year before winter break. We had our first PBIS Cougar Challenge Reward. The staff put this together. It was super cool. It was an 1.5-hour mini festival with all these crazy activities. I had kids on the floor with a straw blowing a little fuzzy ball down a track, stuff I could have never come up with. The staff did a great job with that. We had our snowball. It was one of the best attended dances I can remember being a chaperone for. This March, we had the great opportunity to host another Remember Rally. So this is hopefully a new Dirigo Middle School tradition that whenever a high school program is on the way to the highest possible level of attainment for their sport or club, we want to recognize them, not with a pep rally, but with a Remember Rally. And I pull out pictures of the yearbook when they were in the 6th grade. We project that up, and then we invite teachers who knew them then to talk about what they were like. And it's just a really sweet, warm, cool thing. And the picture off to the side here is 4 kids from the basketball team walking in the art room and finding the ceiling tile that they had painted, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So that was fun. It's always fun. Capstone projects. Maybe you've seen a little bit online or at some of your town meetings. We have a program now where we have students that are 8th graders. It's really a civics class, but it's a project-based, service-based learning civics class where the students are guided into a process where they identify a problem or an issue in their local community, and then they begin to work through and troubleshoot, well, how the dickens do I do something about this? And then they're able to do that. And we have some students who have attended town meetings. We have students who have put projects in place that are actually going to happen and get funded. Last year, some of those projects happened. This year, a greater number are happening. And that is something that I'm a strong believer in project-based learning. I think it's a great kind of final stamp on a middle school experience. We had our Black Mountain Day celebration. That's always fun. We take the whole school to Black Mountain. We make good use of that Tubin Hill, and it's a good break up in the winter and a celebration for us at the end of the 2nd trimester. Our March workshop day, my staff are pretty tired. You saw the behavior data earlier. So I focused our workshop on educator self-care. And I wanted to put that up here because I think how we take care of our staff is part of also how we help our school. We ended up having Sydney Petheridge came. She's a certified yoga instructor, and we had like the whole staff on the floor in the gym doing Nidra yoga. It was pretty cool stuff. It was a good day. It was a good day. It kind of perked us up a little bit. And right now we're underway with Slugger's Reading Challenge. If you read a certain number of books, Portland Sea Dogs will give you free tickets, and my PTO will put you on a bus and take you to a game. We do that every year. It's a lot of fun. It gets the kids reading. Just when that spring weather looks like it's a little too fun to do schoolwork, we try to get them, a little shot in the arm. Let's get some extra reading in. Click the slide. And here is what is upcoming. I promise you I'm already almost done. All right. So this Friday, the middle school is having a middle school version of what was a really impressive and successful program at the high school. And I'm sure Pam will talk about it another time. We are having an anti-drug abuse presentation that's going to be put on for us on Friday. I've been working with Chancey Libby, with the Oxford County Sheriff's Office, as well as with the River Valley Healthy Communities Coalition and the Larry Labonte Recovery Center. And we're going to have an honest but age-appropriate presentation about the issues related to substance abuse in our community. I feel very strongly that even though I'm a middle school principal, we know from my house data that a lot of times it's middle school kids who have their first experimentation with something. And due to the existence and prevalence of fentanyl, that first experiment is no longer just a first experiment. The kids need to understand the risks. And so we're going to do that. I did send a letter home, so any parent who's uncomfortable with that can pull their kid from it. But I need to do that. We're having a family movie night on the 13th. A member of our school community, the Chapman family, lost their home in a fire, and our staff is putting on a fundraiser for them. And we're going to be using the really cool new online movie licensing that Brian put together for us. So we're going to show Wonder. If you've ever seen Wonder, it's a great anti-bullying message movie. It's a family movie. I've got the wrestling coach's permission to put the mats out so that the gym floor is comfy. And we're going to have a movie night fundraiser for that family. And then after April break, here it comes. We're working on the 8th, 9th grade transition. Students come to the high school, they shadow at the high school. High school advisors come down to the middle school, meet the kids, and begin to get them ready to make a safe transition into high school. Then, of course, we have our state mandated spring testing. We'll do that, and we'll do our best with it. And then we got our semi-formal dance, our class trip. This year, they talked me into letting them lock the kids in the school until midnight, and I got to stay there with them. I don't know how I said yes to that, but I did. But they're going to make a park out of it and also go down to Lewiston for some activities before. Then the 5th grade is going to come up for our step-up day in June. And finally, our end-of-year activities. We always make a point to go to the lake up at Mount Blue State Park. And we have a field day as well. And then, because I'm so much fun, we hold a summer school in July. Next slide. So that's my report on the building. I know it's late. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Go Cougars.
Any questions for Jason?
Yes.
Go ahead, Mary.
I am so sorry. I know it's very late.
Don't.
Back to one of the first slides. Can you just explain to me, what is a growth goal? Who determines it?
Love it.
Briefly.
I love it. Nope,
Briefly.
that's what I want. That's what I want. So when you take the NWEA assessment based on your score, so the NWEA is a diagnostic test. I know the state uses it like an achievement test, but it really runs like a diagnostic on your car. When you're taking the math test, it's got all these different strands, these different skill strands, and it asks you questions on each strand until you can no longer get the questions right 50% of the time. And it says, okay, when it comes to this, that's your instructional level. Then it moves on to the next thing. Okay, this is your instructional level, so on and so forth. And then the teachers can use that information to have a better sense of what they need to teach next and look for trends and themes going on in the classroom. It's a good test in that way. So, but when you take the test, it'll also tell you, okay, based on where you're at right now in the fall, here's where we hope you get to by spring. Here's where we hope you get to by winter. And those goals are meant to be realistic goals so that you can tell as an administrator, a teacher, a parent, or a kid, am I growing the way I'm supposed to grow? Or am I falling behind? Or am I blowing it out of the park? And so that's what those growth goals represent. And I always have a hard time hanging my hat on achievement data because it really, the NUIA was never meant to be an achievement test, even though the state uses it that way. It's meant to measure growth. So my primary goal is to say, are my kids growing? And that's what I pay attention to, especially on the winter test. Got it? All right. Any other questions?
Bruce?
I'll be honest with you, I've never been a fan of some of these standardized state tests. But my overall question is where I stand is how are our students doing grade for grade, year for year? Are we seeing them continuing to improve? I mean, if you looked at this, at these charts, and you'd almost say, well, gee, let's use the 22, 23, 29% of this population in this middle school are failing middle school. Well, it's not true.
Right.
They're doing probably quite well. And I know a lot of students who can take a standardized test and bomb it and be a top student in their class.
No doubt.
So my bigger question, I guess, to get around it is that how are our students doing in these grades from 5 to 8? Are we seeing a percentage that are failing, or are we seeing most of the percentage that are doing well?
So I have high expectations. So my honest answer to you is that our students are doing better now than they once did, but not nearly good enough. That's my feeling. I'll tell you that I downloaded the entire, and you're right what you said about standardized tests, but we want to have measures that make us feel objectively like how are we doing overall. When I became principal of TWK DMS at 17-18 year, Deergo Middle School had the lowest achievement in math and reading on the NWEA. Oh, no, it wasn't the NWEA then. Whatever the state assessment was that year, because they keep changing it on us, as you well know. We had the lowest in Oxford County. Now we have the third highest in Oxford County in both reading and math. That means something to me, but I don't think we're there yet. I think work ethic is a concern. I think that kiddos have to come in and understand what it takes in order to be successful out there. We have a lot of structures in place to help kids, because if I didn't have those there, I'm fearful, and I know from past experiences before those things were there, that they might wilt and fail. And I need to help them get used to the idea of doing it, whatever it is that they're supposed to do. I want my middle school kids, though, to be more independent. I want them to need less help to do the right thing. But until I get them there, I'm going to do what I can to make sure that they're at least moving in the right direction.
My follow-up is I'm in high hopes that we are from 5 to 8 well preparing our students to high school range. And that's what I look at for a goal, is that we can take someone that's coming from an elementary going into middle school, but that middle school years are the core buildup for them to get into high school.
I agree.
And this is where I'm hoping that what I'm seeing with the growth that Chachi's showing, but what I'm looking at is the brass tacks of where they're doing in the classrooms at the middle school. If we're seeing continuous strains, that means that we're getting them more and more prepared for high school. And that's where our middle school is really the key factor.
That's what we're working on. I mean, one of the strange things about my job is that I have the kiddos for 3 years, and then I get a new batch of young people every year. And so it's like the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. Like I keep reliving the same kind of a thing. It isn't just about standardized test scores, not at all. I think, I'm concerned about attendance, but I know that I'm not alone. I know that's a national issue right now. I'm concerned about behavior, but I know I'm not alone. I know that's a national issue right now. We have a summer school in place, and I make it mandatory. And parents have said to me, how can you make summer school mandatory? And I say, well, because I do. And, and then I just bother them until the kid shows up. And I've had, so last year in summer school, out of the, I don't recall the number, 40-ish or so kids, maybe more than that attended summer school, I have 3 who refused to attend. One of those students ended up withdrawing, and the 2 other students, I took away their study hall until they caught up on the work that they owed. I have to find safe ways to hold kids accountable so that they can be successful in high school. And that's the real battle to me, that work ethic piece. Yep.
Any other questions for Jason? Thank you so much. You do so much, and with all your showing, it just shows how much you care and your determination.
We got a great staff, a great
You
community.
do, and you lead it. Thank
Go
you.
Cougars.
As we continue superintendent's report, I'll ask Dr. Swan to come to the podium to introduce somebody you all thought was on sabbatical.
So this fall, and part of my creativity to recover some staff that had moved on, I need an extra K teacher, and we had our ESSER funding in place to fund this. And so Julie Couture, who had come to the board last year and said that she was going on sabbatical, you had approved that. Then her principal called her and said, hey, instead of sabbatical, how about kindergarten for the year? And so she was in the process and is in the process of finishing her certification for early childhood, which goes to third grade. She has received an emergency certification now through the state of Maine. And so we would like to officially hire her for the kindergarten position that she's been doing since August. And this position, again, as I reported out last time, the position itself is most likely moving up to fourth grade next year due to higher enrollments in the upper grades and lower enrollments in kindergarten. And the position itself at the end of next year will be going away as it is an ESSER funded position. Julie is committed to the kindergarten side of it, is not yet committed, probably won't commit because her certification won't go up that far to the fourth grade. So we're looking to hire her for the K position to the end of this year.
Thank you.
And to be clear, she's been in that position all year. She's just been there as a long-term sub, waiting for the Department of Education to provide a certification that would allow her to be officially hired. So I want to clarify, so she isn't here on a waiver. So I submitted a waiver on behalf of RSU56 because she's not fully certified yet. She's still finishing up her classes, but she is now officially in the data bank at Maine Department of Education as a certified teacher under a waiver.
And she's seeking her certification that she's hoping to finish next year will be both in special ed in K to 3. So really a valuable resource. She's previously a Title I and a special ed tech in our building. So most of you know Julie. She's a terrific person.
So she won't have to do student teaching what she did this year.
She'll have to do some more next year. That's
She'll
one
have
of the
to.
complications. Like she's trying to decide what's best for her to get that finalized through the university she's working with.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, could I get a motion, please? And this is for the end of the year, correct? Yes.
Yep.
Second,
Second.
comments or questions? Seeing none, Angela's off, right? So nobody's. Okay, we can, sorry, you don't have. Okay, all those in favor, it's a vote. Thank you, Charlie.
And to finish up my superintendent's report, I would like to report out the transfer of Rachel Buck. She is currently at the Derigo Elementary School as a social worker under that ESSER funded position. And she's coming back to Derigo High School as the social worker. And this does include 20% special ed. So she's 80% Derigo High School social worker, 20% special ed social worker as she comes back to the high school.
Thank you. That's it. Committee reports, our student person.
So
published.
Diana did ask me to send her regards tonight. She was at a leadership meeting all day at Winthrop, and she needed to study for a test tomorrow. So she did beg off this evening.
Policy hasn't met. Finance,
Yeah, I believe the whole meeting was about finance. So we met and they opened the bus garage, and I just can't believe that it would cost that much for that size building. And like administration fees and architecture, and I think it was $200,000 to level the gravel. I just can't believe it. That's kind of disappointment to me.
curriculum hasn't met. Buildings and grounds.
We have a meeting this Friday at 9 a.m.
Negotiations, we have none this year. Personnel, Natalie's not here, and ad hoc hasn't met. Board member comments. Huh? I know it's time to go home. Seeing none. We don't have an executive session. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All those in favor? Thank you, everyone, for coming.